into Behind the News, the World, here on WBAR Radio, 99.5 on your dial. This is an excellent segue into our next guest that we're very excited about, and that is Omali Yeshitela. He is chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. He's founder of the Uhuru movement and leader of the Black is Back coalition. Welcome, Chairman Omali, to the program.
Thank you very much, Sister Nellie. I'm quite happy to be here with you.
Well, let's start with the conference that is coming up of Black is Back. It is going to be, the conference will be held this coming weekend. It's the national conference of the Black Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. It will be held in St. Louis, Missouri from April 18th through the 19th. The theme of the conference, Community Control of the Police. The adopted slogan, as I read, is no justice, no peace without Black control of the police. And again, Chairman Omali, welcome to the program. Let's start with the published political overview for the April conference on Black community control of police. Let's start there.
Splendid. I think that's really important because the overview really is like the main resolution for the conference itself, and it was voted on by the steering committee of the Black is Back coalition for presentation at the conference. And what we try to do with the main resolution is to set the tone and the terms for the conference itself, because there are so many people who are involved in a kind of spontaneous motion throughout this country around this issue of police murder in our communities. And it is a problem that there is no really coherent message that's coming out. And in addition to there not being a coherent message, there is not a description, definition of who the police are, which allows mayors and police chiefs and charlatans to pretend that we're just dealing with bad training, or that one bad cop in the barrel. And when people understand that the police are an arm of the state, and the state by definition is coercive, and it has as its primary function to protect the status quo, to protect the class in power. And if we understand that in this country in particular, the state is something that was forged through the process of slavery and taking and holding this land from the indigenous peoples, both those who are called Indian and the Mexicans, then we see that there's no accident that the police function in a certain way when it comes to our communities. It is there for the purpose. It is something that has been born, the police as an arm of the state, born through the existence of a society being split between those who have and those who do not have. And the ones who got it, they got it as a consequence of taking it from those who don't have it. And for that to work, there must necessarily be a coercive arm that maintains the status quo, that keeps the people from rising up and killing the oppressors and taking back our freedom and resources. So that's one of the things the main resolution really strives to bring clarity to so that it's not just a discussion that goes everywhere, but we ask the conference participants to unite with the basic main resolution that begins by simply stating the police are an arm of the state no matter what the circumstances or situation, whether it is a matter of the police ruthlessly gunning down unarmed Africans, as in the cases of 7-year-old Ayanna Jones in Detroit, 12-year-old Tamir Rice in Cleveland, or Eric Garner and Mike Brown in Staten Island and Ferguson, or a matter of the cops chasing bank robbers and serial killers. We are talking about the state in action. And I think that's fundamentally important for everybody to understand, and hopefully it can give some kind of coherence and cohesion to the spontaneous movement that is a thrilling movement, but we are in a serious contest with people who would misdirect the energy and militancy, growing militancy of the people, and have us in the swamp of opportunism and reformism.
Well, one of the things that we're searching for now is an audio of Reverend Al Sharpton, who described this crisis, this systemic racism that is sanctioned and carried out by the state, as you just described, as a situation of a few bad apples in the barrel. And obviously it's much more than that. But the documents rightfully condemns this opportunism, defined in the document as the practice of sacrificing the long-term interests of the oppressed for some short-term advantages for a sector of the population, the middle class or petty bourgeoisie, will be provided with plush jobs within the state apparatus. But when one looks at the longevity, and you talked about short-term gains, and when one unfortunately looks at the longevity of colonial administrators, these are servants of the state apparatus in terms of their longevity, the Charlie Rangels, the Al Sharpton,
yes,
S.C. Jackson,
yes,
and their reign of greed and betrayal really is not short-term, but it is long-term. The question, I believe, is most relevant, especially in light of this re-energized movement sparked by Ferguson that you mentioned. Well, these servants of the U.S. plutocracy are needed even more so with the failure of the post-racial propaganda pushed by the state after the election of President Barack Obama. How does the black community confront this rank and destructive opportunism in its face?
I think that one of the things, ways that we do it is by calling it what it is. And because every effort that's being made by the Sharptons and that ilk, by the Holders and by the Obamas, is an effort to look, when we say the short-term interest, we mean the long-term interest of the masses of the people is to overturn this relationship we got with white power colonialism, but with capital. And when we say the short-term interest is that some people would tell us that we don't really have an interest in having black community control the police. What we have to do is settle for hiring more black cops, getting more black chiefs of police, getting more Negroes elected to office. And that's a short-term solution in the sense that it doesn't extend the struggle to where it needs to be. They would sacrifice the long-term interests of the masses of the people just for some short-term advantages that they get. So they don't want to go all the way. And that's what we mean when we talk about a short-term advantages that's for a handful of them. And only they are the ones who benefit from that. And I think we have to define it. We have to call it what it is and call them out. And we have to say that those people who are offering up these kinds of solutions are opportunists and that they're working against the interests of the masses of the people. And fundamentally, I think that what has to happen is that the people have to be given their own organization and they have to be given their own leadership. And part of what the coalition is attempting to do is define in this particular instance. And what we're doing now is looking specifically at the question of the police and its relationship to us. And of course, that extends to the mass incarceration and on related questions. And it's the thing that has excited the imagination of masses of black people. We've seen in a matter of 8 months a leap in radical consciousness of African people that is greater than what we've seen in the last 40 years. And so we have to use this opportunity now expeditiously. And I believe that raising up and defining who it is, I think that's why it's so important at this moment to be as scientific as we can, dealing with these issues that's created such mass interest. People are turning their backs on Sharpton and folk like that. and they need to be armed with some kind of science, some kind of understanding in order to be there. And I think that, again, the coalition gives us an opportunity to take that on. But struggle, just struggle. I mean, people are shutting down interstates and jamming up city halls and things like that. But we have to try and make the demand something that the system can't really effectively respond to. Certainly can't solve their problems, such as black community control of the police. And then if we define those forces like the Sharptons who come out against that as opportunists, then we begin to narrow their ability to influence the people. And also we begin to limit their significance. We begin to undermine their value to white power itself. Sharpton could even lose his job.
Well, just to illustrate that point, we have an audio clip of the good Reverend describing this situation as an illustration of just a few bad cops, and we want you to listen to this.
We are here by the thousands. We are not here to tear down. We're here to build up. We are not here to cause violence. We're here because violence was caused. An illegal chokehold is violence. To stand around and watch a man victimized and no one do anything about it is violence. When a man with a video camera shows more regard for human life than those sworn to serve and protect, that's violence. We are not against police. Most police do their job. But those that break the law must be held accountable just like anybody else. Don't act like we are here against police. We are for police. But let me tell you something. If you have a bag of apples and there's a rotten apple in the bag, the only way to protect the good apples is to take the rotten apple out.
So there you have it, Omali, an analysis
yes.
of bad apples.
Yes, and I think Sharpton is a bad apple.
It's
and
a reformist agenda.
Yeah.
And the reason why we played this is that although we constantly hear in Harlem talk about the portrayal of Sharpton's and others of his ilk, as you just said, he does, unfortunately, he has an audience, a national audience. He has a network that is fully funded by the U.S. plutocracy. That is a fact. And his influence grows because he knows that his job is to be at those hot spots if he is to stay on top of his game. So do you have any further comments on that in terms of not only the Sharptons, but the rest of the, as Friends Fanon referred to them as the colonial administrators of these internal colonies in the U.S.?
That's exactly what they are. But the thing I would say is that increasingly we are seeing people in motion, and Sharpton can't get there. He's not there. I heard earlier you were talking about some actions which are occurring in various places throughout the United States. Sharpton is not there. And in many of these places, Sharpton will not be welcomed. And what we are doing is taking up the political ground. We are making it more increasingly difficult for Sharpton to be able to show up. And we are taking up as much of the political space. And I think that's what it is. We are in a contest. And this show that we're doing, for example, is a part of that. Sharpton is hired by the ruling class. He's a pundit for one of the major state-related media organizations in this country. That gives him a lot of legitimacy to some people, makes it possible for his voice to be magnified thousands of times over. But the reality is that this show and other kinds of things that's being done and other programs and we're challenging him for that space and the mobilizations that people are doing. And also because increasingly the reason Sharpton is so necessary right now is because the people are coming to consciousness. They are free. Their brains are becoming increasingly freed from the control of the ruling class, and a Sharpton is more necessary now than ever. And when it talks about this whole question of bad apples, I agree. Sharpton himself is a bad apple. And we got to get this bad apple out of the bag with the rest of us. And I think that this discussion we're having now, I think the conference that we're doing in April 18th and 19th, Sharpton couldn't show his face in there. Of course, we're not going to have the thousands of people that he is able to show, but these people are representative of groups of people throughout the country who will go back and take the same message. And the fact is, he talks about how the police must do their jobs, but the police are doing their jobs. Anybody who understands the nature of the state understands it is their job to repress. It is their job to be coercive. And the state legalizes itself. So they talk about the law when the state legalizes itself, and we have a situation, as you know, I don't have to, repeat this to you and probably for most of your listeners, because the police are killing Africans throughout this country, and they are doing it with impunity. And the only instance where there seems to be some slight response by the state is when there is such glaring evidence of the criminality, and masses have access to that to not do something would cause them a greater problem than doing something. And it is for them a double-edged sword, because doing something to a cop who has committed these horrible offenses against us, especially in the face of the resistance of the people, seems to suggest to the people that resistance works. But if you don't do something when everybody knows about this, you just grow more resistance. So it is a rock and a hard place that they find themselves in most of the time. But the movement that is emerging at this moment, I think, will undermine the ability of Sharpton to do anything. And I think that's what's so important. We have to stay in motion, and we have to give some kind of direction to this thing. And I think it's a critical question to call for this most democratic demand. What greater democratic demand can one make in the face of what the police is doing than black community control of the police? That we control these armed people who are wandering around in our communities be put under the authority of the black community itself. That's the demand. And of course, it's not something that the state is going to embrace and eagerly look for, but it's the basis now for all of the demonstrations, all of the disruptions of the courts and the city halls, is the basis for the resolutions that will be throughout this country. We intend to have people going to city councils, getting on the agenda and having them to deal with a resolution demanding black community control of the police. We will get thousands of petitions signed by Africans and others around this country demanding black community control of the police in solidarity with the Black is Back coalition. We will distribute flyers and posters to everybody who comes to this conference and make them available to anybody throughout this country demanding black community control of the police. We will call on Africans and other people wherever they are, whenever there's a police killing like a Walter Scott, or when they do something like they did to this brother in Oklahoma, whom they shot in the back mistakenly. Masses will go out demanding black community control of the police. The thing is to make this the demand, which is something that serves to kick off a process with the intent of deconstructing this colonial relationship that we have to African people. That's the motion that we are attempting to create.
We have another short clip because, and this goes to the point that you just made, that resistance works. It works to the extent that it produces unintended remarks or verification of what it is that we have always known. Now, here in New York, of all places on Fox right-wing television station, their legal analyst just casually confirmed what we have known all along.
There's some kind of interference, Sister Nellie.
They would then take that gun out and we're talking about dirty cops. I'm talking about dirty cops.
Well, you see what I mean? Just the casualness of that conversation is the same as police, the cop Michael Slager, who just shot Scott 8 times, just casually walked there and planted the gun, and he sort of laughed, and adrenaline is pumping. And that's how it is, because before there would have been absolute denial.
Yes.
Almost to the same extent as the incredible denial of white America at the video beating of Rodney King.
Yes.
It is another Twilight Zone reality that I believe illustrates, as you pointed out, is evidence, as you pointed out, of this movement and this re-energizing of the folks in their consciousness that it doesn't matter whether you confirm what we know already, we're still going to be out there. But I think it's important to note that the agents of the ruling class are saying, hey, what's the big deal? What are these people getting excited about?
Exactly. And Sister Nellie, I find it really serious that even as people talk about Eric Garner and the brother who was just killed in Oklahoma, people make a lot of noise about the cop who choked Eric Garner to death. But they don't say anything about how those cops treated him, even if he had lived through that experience. The fact that they got their knee and pushing his head, like into the pavement. I mean, that's just a total disregard for this African as a human being. It's a bestialization of black people that is generally accepted by the white America, and certainly is accepted by the police department. And look at the brother who was shot in the back, and they say it was an accident because they thought it was a taser. But did you see what the other cops were doing in terms of the knees in the head? Even as this man saying, I can't breathe. Even as he's saying, I've been shot, and they're telling him to shut up. One's got his guy's been shot, and he's got his knee in his head. I mean, this humiliating kind of treatment of African people, a dead man, are nearly dead human beings, as though Africans do not have value, as though we can be discarded like so much trash on the streets. And the fact is that, yes, the police departments definitely do these things, and they are a function of the state. And I think we must always remind people of that. But generally speaking, they have the support of the masses of white people in this country who, despite all evidence of what the police do to us, in fact, always side with the police and themselves see the police as the first line of defense from what they assume black people may be likely to do to them. So the 911 is the magic number. A black person in the community that you don't like being there, 911. That's how we are treated. And we are a colonized subject population, and the subjugation could not occur without the support of the vast majority of the white people. And I think it is absolutely necessary to, when we look at this country, it is a culture that has stemmed from the fact that the land itself, taken from people who are living in concentration camps that they call Indian reservations, nobody ever even talks about. You don't get a discussion about the Indians unless they're in the room. The economy constructed of that land and the stolen forced labor of African people and then half of Mexico stolen in recent history. This is the America that we're talking about. And it's an America that we cannot expect anything other than what we are getting. What has to happen now? The masses of African people have to come into revolutionary organization, revolutionary consciousness, and understand that the only future we are going to have is through overturning this relationship we have to American white power, to the state itself. It has to go. And I don't think we can say anything other than that, except it appears that African people need to be arming ourselves because it's crazy. We would be, somebody should put up walls that contain lunatics if we just allow this kind of murder to continue to happen and then say, okay, well, we got to wait till the courts decide not to do anything to the police. Those of us who really believe that Black Lives Matter should believe that it matters enough to get organized and to call on our people to arm and defend themselves in the face of this terror.
Now, blacks are we are only 13% of the population. I think we've been 12% of the population for the past 30 years.
Yes, we have.
That's another conversation.
It is.
Well, we are 13% of the population, and I believe is clearly, and what I believe that is clearly divided along imaginary class lines with a few exceptions. So how is this our goal of this Black revolutionary consciousness and moving into organizations to have some impact achievable without allies? Unfortunately, the U.S. white left, the remnants of what is left, in my opinion, does not offer much hope. And the black left, admittedly, with the exception of Black is Back, the Black Agenda Report, is still tied to the Democratic Party. Its intoxication with Obama as strong as ever. And already the progressives are gearing up to sell former Secretary of Defense Hillary Clinton as the woman we've been waiting for to take off on Obama. We had a black president, now for a woman. Content secondary to the gender symbolism. I know I don't have the answer, but how are we to deal with that?
First, I want to just say a couple of things about that. One, we do have allies, and we are working closely, as close as possible at this point with allies. I think it was extremely important to get the message of solidarity that came from the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine with the resistance of African people there in Ferguson. I think that we see a growing allies with with Mexicans, on both sides of the border. We have relationships with the Filipino movement, all of whom are in solidarity with us. And then there's this vast African population outside of Africa, from the Bahamas throughout the continent, and also various places in Europe. And in fact, what has happened as a part of the Black is Back coalition is the Patrice Lumumba coalition that was consolidated in Europe as a part of the Black is Back coalition. So I'm just saying that we do have our allies. Our reach is more than what many people would consider. And also, our enemies have a lot of enemies, so that we have access, for example, to mediums that wouldn't be coming to us except forces fighting the U.S. in their own interests are saying, look, you can use this medium now to get your word out because it helps us in the media war or the ideological war that we have with U.S. imperialism. That's from Russia. Obviously, you are aware of the stuff that's happening with Iran, notwithstanding. Yeah.
We only have a couple of minutes left, and I want you to address as briefly and succinctly as you can the Sharpton Global Alliance and the resistance against U.S. full-spectrum dominance doctrine, and that is global domination. We saw it at the recent Summit of the Americas, where Raul Castro was there and Obama had to back off. So just quickly sum that up for us in terms of, we have 2 minutes, in terms of moving forward with this global shifting alignment, not only economically, but also confronting U.S. imperialism.
Well, that's really important because there's clearly a global shift of power, and the U.S. is in a state of retreat and decline, and it can be seen with Russia and Ukraine and how the Russians are pursuing their own agenda. Despite the attempts by the United States to and Europe to encircle, but particularly the United States to encircle Russia and to maintain to keep Russia to make Russia become one of its hireling and a satellite of the U.S. We see China, the growing movement of China, the growth of China as an influence in Asia, as an influence in Africa, where China is now the fastest growing economy there. We see China establish a bank, the Asian Industrial Investment Bank,
It's
scaring the hell out of them. And the U.S. told England not to join it, and England joined it. They told Germany not to join it, and Germany joined it. They told Italy. The whole European, everybody's going with China. And what we see happening is where the World Bank became the go-to bank for Western imperialism dominated by the United States. Now, this bank, the World Bank came into existence replacing England as the primary economic force in the world. So we see...
But we have to end it there. Our time is out.
Okay.
You promised to come back and talk to us after the conference.
I will do that, and and we want to remind people, Saturday, April 18, 2015, and the 19th, we're going to be with the Black is Back conference to Black community control of the police in St. Louis, and our number 224-572-9887. So I want to thank you so much, Nellie.
Yeah, well, repeat that number again.
It is 224-572-9887. We're going to be at Janan Academy. That's 3625 North Garrison Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. You promised to come back and give us a report on the conference itself. Hopefully, some of us will see you there. That does it for Behind the News, the World.